Hey, TinyT, I'm coming back here to show you what I've done with the sheetrock. As usual, you put it up on the wall and get it hung there, and you put the top piece in first and get it up close to the ceiling. That way you have a little bit of space at the bottom so it ain't sitting on the floor. Draw up any damp or anything like that with water. Did use green board in here because this is a bathroom, so there is water and it's more resistant to water and mildew. And wanted to show you what I did that's a little bit different from all of that. Got all this put in here, but like here for the pipes, rather than just try and cut out exactly around those, which take a lot of time if you want to try and measure them or if you want to get them up there. I already had the handles and stuff on the shutoffs here. I could take those off and get it right down to the pipes and stuff too, but just to make it easier and go a little bit quicker, I cut a square out from stud to stud there, if you can see. And just around all of those, that was easy to measure, pretty good size. And even then I got a little bit off. I'm a little bit over about a ½ inch on my holes there, but it's still enough I can catch it with the screws and put some piece in there. Did the same thing down here on the corner with that piece, just cut a piece out of the corner. Then later I come in and I measured where that pipe was, just on that little piece. I could set it right down there and get pretty close to exactly where that is. Now on this one, I just took a notch out at the side and I'll put a piece of that patch material across there, and that'll clean up real good there, and you won't even see that there. So this here I'm real happy with. And then this one here did the same thing, kept the piece I cut out in one piece, and then I was able to set that up there and notch the holes to get that a little bit more exact. So I find this seemed to have worked out real well for me. I can set that across on those. Like I say, I could have took those handles off that one there and made it a little bit more closer to the pipe size, but I wanted to have those handles on and test it, make sure when they leak. This is one of those quick connect shark bites that I put on there, and so as you can see, a little bit off on the hole here, but it had to be a little bit bigger to fit over the handle and stuff, so that part I could have took off and put a little bit, but kind of want to protect those threads if I could, so I left that on there until I get my hoses to put on there. But that, again, here I can come up with a patch material and come around that if I want to get a little bit closer or get something else that goes across that. But I'm probably happy with that the way it is. So anyway, I would have liked to have those come out just a little bit farther, but for me it wasn't worth it. Just outside that wall with the turnoffs and the water hoses, I was good with it. It stuck out here a little bit farther, but there's a lot of corrosion that I cut off on the end with the other shutoff that was on here. And so I lost a little bit of distance coming out from the wall, but that makes it less hard for something to catch on to them. So did that with both of those and got my patch in there. And now I got to screw those two ends on and then start my taping and plastering for the joints and the screw holes here. So anyway, that's a little trick I just thought of on my own. Don't know if anybody else does stuff like that, but I thinking about it, I measure and try to get those exact, and I usually don't get any better than what I've done here. Usually a little bit worse. So what I got now is just a couple extra lines there to tape and float, but that's nothing. I'm doing all this anyway, so not too much extra work to do that, I don't think, on it. So, but anyway, that's just an idea what I'm doing. So anyway, if you like it, post some comments, let me know what your thoughts are, and subscribe. Talk to y'all later. TinyT signing out. Hey, TinyT back here on the bathroom remodel for the hallway, and I want to show you just the plastering that I use here. I don't use the paper tape. I use this kind of, I don't know if it's fiberglass or what it is, but it's a mesh tape, that joint tape that goes on. What I like about it is it's got a little stickiness to it, so I can just put it up there. You don't need to put any mud down beforehand, and it'll just stay up there. You can take it and get it level and get it on the joint. I use this for my corners, for my joints, everything. I know some friends of mine that are carpenters, they don't necessarily like it, they say, but I think that's just because they've gotten used to the other, and that's what they use. This, I've used it several times and really happy with it, and it seems to do a really good job. So anyway, this is what I use. You just simply put that down, don't have to put a base or anything, then come back and put your plaster over top of your joint compound and squeeze it down in there. So anyway, that's just give you an update on what I'm doing here. I should get this done shortly. And hey, TinyT Prepper here, and I wanted to show you the finished results here of texturing the bathroom. I got all the sheetrock up, and I put the thing back around the pipes. Got that. Then I went ahead and you notice I taped everything over that I thought might get plaster on it, and all around here for the cement board was taped that, so we don't want plaster on that. So I got that all taped. I did do the ceiling. Probably should have taped those thing grates there, but I'm going to take those off and wash them anyway and repaint them. So I thought, well, you know, it probably would have been quicker if I'd have just taped them up, but they're pretty scroungy anyway. I was going to have to wash them and stuff before I spray painted them white, so I went ahead and just left those on to save a little bit of time. So might regret it later, but usually that stuff, if you soak it a little bit and rinse it, it'll come off fairly easy. It's a lot easier to not have it there, but I was kind of in a hurry here, so I left it, and it cost me a little bit more time later probably. But what I do on this is I spray kind of a heavy texture, then I come back with a trowel after it's dried some. You know, you want the bottom dried and the top thicker parts to be wet, and then you kind of get that, if you can see that texture there, when you strike it down, it flattens that out, and you get that kind of nice looking texture there. So you want to use a wide trowel. You don't want to use like a 4-inch. You want your 9-inch or 8-inch, that last big trowel that you use when you spread out the last coat. So that's what you want to use on these. Now, one thing I wish I had done, you want to make sure you cover everything you can. Now here, this door, I covered the top and I covered the side, and that worked out real nice. I didn't get anything on that door, but over here, this door, these walls are already done, so I didn't have to do those. But I had to do the ceiling in here, texture it. We took off the popcorn and put the texture on that. I said, well, I'll just hold up on there, which worked real nice. I didn't get anything on the door. I had stuff over the doorknob and had the door closed, so that worked fine. But when I come over here and doing this wall, if you notice, I didn't think about the overspray from here, and it sprays onto the door on this side over on here. So I'm going to have some cleanup on here, and I want to do that before that stuff sets and gets real hard. So got a little bit on the back. I didn't notice it was mainly on this side here, which isn't too bad. I'll cover with paint. That's on this side over here, but on the door, that's wood. While it would cover, we don't really want a texture on the door, so that was one I missed. I should have probably covered that door, and that one I probably would have had to cover completely just because of the corner here, but I didn't see it until when I was spraying. I went, oops, and anyway, but so just something about being sure you get everything. I thought I had everything taped. I'd even taped that in case stuff dropped down from the ceiling onto it, and I wasn't thinking about stuff coming from the side over here. But anyway, let's take a look at some tools that you use when you texture. Okay, one thing you're going to need is a spray gun. If you take a look here, this is a spray gun. Nothing expensive, just one from Home Depot or someplace. It's probably about $89, something like that. And you do want to clean it out. If you do use it, make sure you clean it out. I'm going to run some air through it. I cleaned out with water every place where the plaster goes. But that's just a spray gun. Then it's got what they call a hopper. This is your hopper, and that's what the plaster goes in, and that just sits on top of that part right there, and the handle goes back towards you because you're going to be lifting that up to spray with, and you just put your mud in there. Now you do need to thin down your mud before it pours. Not like paint, it needs to be a little bit thicker, and depending on what type of texture you want. I wanted a heavy texture on this with that I could strike down, so I left it a little bit thicker. It wasn't like paint, but it was a little thick, quite a bit thicker than that. But it wasn't thick like mud that you get out of the bucket. That's pretty soft, you think. But I probably added into one of those boxes that you get of plaster. I probably added in a half gallon to 3/4 of a gallon, and it was pretty thick. I was kind of questionable if I was going to be able to spray that, but I put the air up a little bit higher, about 60, 70 on my compressor, 60, 70 pounds pressure, which they say, 18 a lot of times on that. If I go 18, even with thin stuff, I don't get a very good texture coming out. It just doesn't spray very well with that. So my compressor may be a little bit different. They might all be a little bit different on what they do. So anyway, that's the tools you use, and you want to make sure you clean them out right away, because boy, they're hard to clean if you let it set up in there and dry if it gets very thick. Now you do want some kind of tool to mix it. Just when you mix it with water, you can't do it with a stick, so you need something kind of like a paddle like this, and then you need a big drill of some type to spin that. And I have one of these. It's not a whole hog that they call, but it's Chicago. It's a cheap one, but you do need something like that in order to mix up your mud. So if you don't have that, you'll want to get one of those too. So it will cost you a little bit in tools, but it'll save you a lot in labor to do your own. It's really not that hard. If anybody's interested, let me know, and I'll do a little video from start to finish on just a test piece of, not a test piece, but just on a piece of drywall, that just for demonstration purposes. If you want me to do a video or something on that, I can do a little bit more detail on it and show you about the texturing and how it all works, and maybe a little bit on the plastering if you need. I'm not by any means a pro. I'm a do-it-yourselfer, but it works for me. So if you're not real picky, you can save a lot of money doing your own stuff. And I say not real picky, but you make stuff look real nice. So, and we're happy with what we do. So anyway, TinyT Prepper signing out. Hey, TinyT Prepper here, and I'm back with a bathroom install. As you can see, my wife was in here and painted this a week or so ago when she was up, and she's got one color there and another color over here, so that's kind of an accent color. I let her worry about the colors that she wants to pick out and ever have what she wants. But what I'm doing this week is I'm putting in the tile, and I did a lot of cleaning up here first, take all the paper down from the paint, and then clean up the floor real good so the tile will stick. And I started to work on the shower tile first. That's all going to be tiled there, but then I decided I'm coming down there on this side of the shower pan, and I'm going to go right to the floor with it. So I wanted that overlap to be on top of that floor tile. So I went ahead and started here with the floor tile first. Plus it's a little bit easier to do the floor, so I want to get it done. That way I can put, if I want to, I'll put the toilet back in here, and if it ain't in the way, I'll put the sink back in. I'm not sure if that'll get over onto that tile. I don't think it does, but I'll probably leave the sink out until I get the tiling done on that. So hopefully I'll get that done here the next couple days. But after I get the floor grouted and have it dry. But kind of wanted to show, I know I've done some of the tile work before, but I kind of want to show what I use and what I do there, and what you need in order to do this. I'm using 18-inch tile here, which is a pretty good sized tile. It goes pretty quick, but when you do have to cut, you do have to make some cuts in them, and it's a little bit bigger to work around. Smaller tiles, you can tend to cut out one side or the other. You can see there that hole should have been right in the middle of the tile, but at my jigsaw that I had that had the blade in it, something was wrong with that blade. It didn't cut tile today, so I ended up having to just cut one side out there. Now it'll be hid under the toilet, but what I'll do is I'll put a little piece in there just to make sure that there's something for the tile to sit on. So I'll get a scrap piece and put in there, but that's all covered by the toilet itself, so I won't have to worry about that. Now underneath there I'm putting what they call a thin set mortar, and that's the same stuff I'll use on the wall when I do that. I just make sure it's a real good peanut butter consistency. I mix it all the same. It dries pretty quick, sets up pretty quick. I got a little bit left here that I'm going to try and get used up before I work on, but I want to show you a little bit about that, what you need to do that work here. One thing you'll need to do tile work is, depending on the size of your tile, you need a notch trowel. Now don't get the one that's for mastic, which is kind of a glue. It's got little bitty notches in it, not even a notch really, it's kind of serrated almost, and that's for a glue. This is a 1/4 inch trowel, and you can go up to 1/2 inch if you want to get a little bit more mud under it. These tiles I probably could have done either one, but I have a 1/4 inch and that worked fine for other stuff I've done with this tile, so I went and stayed with the 1/4 inch trowel. If you had a little bit more uneven space maybe, then maybe you want to use a little thicker grouter base to make sure everything sets level when you put it in. So anyway, this here I didn't really chalk any lines on. It's only 3 tiles across, and I run them across all together, so I didn't worry about trying to keep it exactly even. I could pretty much do that as I came along with it and adjust them. So if I had a bigger floor and stuff, I'd be chalking a line to make sure I kept a straight going there, and I'd probably start down the middle. Now what you'll notice here, some of you will go, wow, look there, he's got 4 inches or so, 4.5 inches on one side I should have split that difference on these, and I'd measured that out, and I think it was 11.5 inches it would have been on both sides, which would have looked nice in here. But when I come down to this part of the hallway, it would have left me kind of uneven as far as going out from here into the closet and meeting at the door. I think I was going to end up with a 3-inch strip there at the door, doing it that way. And I could probably do some kind of transition here and turn the tile, but I just kind of wanted to make it all flow into one piece. So went ahead. Almost all of that's going to be behind either the toilet or the sink basin or in the closet over here. So I'm not really worried about that being a 4.5-inch strip there. Normally you'd measure and split it so you have even on both sides there, whatever it is, if it ain't a full tile, which generally it isn't, and you work that way. Sometimes work from the middle out, chalk a line down, and work back that way. So depending on how big your floor is and what you're doing, it'll depend on what you do there. But I am coming around the corner here on this, and so I want to make sure what I had met up okay over there. So I did start with 9 inches on that side towards the shower, and that put me to, I think, almost a full tile on this other side coming out. So that worked out pretty well that way too. So anyway, besides the tile, you'll need the notch trowel, some buckets to mix up in, mix the mortar in. I got a little hand putty knife in there that I'm dipping it out with onto the floor. I'll just leave this here for right now, and I'll go show you some of the other tools that I'm using here for this. Okay, what I have here is a tile cutting saw, and this ain't a real expensive one. This was less, I think it was less than $100, maybe $129, but I thought it was $89 or $129, something like that, but right around $100 for it. They got more expensive ones, but this one I bought, it seems to be working real well. It's got a reservoir here where I need to put water in. It's a wet blade. You see it gathers up a lot of gunk in there. That just holds the water, and it's got a fence there so you can put on to get a nice straight cut. I don't use this much. I usually mark with a line right on the tile and just run it through by hand that way, and don't really have much trouble with it. With this, you will want some safety goggles because it will throw stuff back at you. So these are pretty important to have. So they'll throw a stream of water out there. Some other stuff you'll want is some kind of heavy-duty drill. This is from Chicago Freight. It's what they call a whole hog drill, and it's very low geared and will steer real heavy stuff. You can't use a regular drill or battery operated drill, and this just wouldn't have the power to turn it. Even this one gets a pretty good workout. With that, you'll also need, see if I can find it, the paddle to mix up. So they make different ones. This one works real well for mortar mixing. It'd be one I'd recommend if you can get this. I don't know if they call it a butterfly or what. They make some circular ones that are for paint, and they work good for paint, but they don't work as, I don't think, as well for the mortar mix. So other people may like those better. That's a personal preference of mine. So you will need something like that to go with the drill to mix your mortar. Now let's take a look at the thin set that I use. Okay, this is the mortar mix, the thin set mortar that I use. It's a little bit expensive, but they make cheaper ones. But this one has a crack prevention, it says in it, and it kind of flexes a little bit, so supposedly prevent less cracks that way. And this is a 50-pound bag, I believe. But look on the back, they'll have mixing instructions on it. This one gives it for a whole bag, 5 quarts of water for this bag of mortar mix. And what I do is I just mix half of that, and if I'm working on the shower, I'll even mix it into thirds. What happens is that if I'm working, especially by myself, like I work a lot of times, it sets up awful quick. Now it's a little bit cooler, so it won't set up quite as much that way, but it is drier, so it still sets up fairly quick. That I have in the bucket I need to get using here pretty quick, but I want to take time out here and show a little bit about what I was doing before I got it all done. And here it says 5 quarts of water for this bag. What I did is I get 2 buckets and I pour it in, and I can get it, eyeball it pretty even there, level with the powder. And then I have a third bucket. I put half the amount of water, 2.5 quarts in, and then I put the mortar mix, add that to it. You want to add the mortar to the water, otherwise you get some dry powder in the bottom. So always get the water in the bucket. In the bucket, you're going to mix it in first, and then add the powder to it, and then stir it up with the whole saw. And the directions on here, they have you stir it up Mix it up pretty good. When you got it mixed, let it sit for about 5-10 minutes, then mix it again with the drill, and once you're done with that, it's ready to go and use. So anyway, I'm going to put this back in that bucket. I still have half a bucket. I want to mix up part of it, and I'll be using the rest of it later. Okay, what I'm going to be doing is putting a tile down around here. I got to measure one. That's why I cleaned up whatever I had along that edge that I'd spread out, and I did that. I'm going to get a couple pieces put in there before that mortar sits up around there, so I can get those in before that dries. And then I'm going to measure a piece out of an 18-inch one that goes in here. It looks like I'll have to cut my baseboard. I have a saw for that I can cut that off with, and I'll cut that so the tile slides in underneath that. Alright, I'll get that done. Hopefully I get that done for my TinyT here, and I'm back with the bathroom remodel. As you can see, I got the floor done and grouted here, and I'm now putting on the wall the same tile, the floor, that I put on the floor, and it's a large tile. It seems to be going up pretty good. I put these plastic things in, it was just mud in with the rest, just like what you do on the floor. You spread it out with that notched trowel, stick them up there. You do need to get those plastic pieces, spacers, and put them in. Otherwise they will slide down the wall on you if you don't have some kind of support on them. Now, real important, I spent probably most of my time yesterday on that bottom row that goes around. It's real important to make you a line that's level. It goes all the way around, and you want to get your tile up to that. And whether or not it's level down beneath it, you want to make sure that top level of the tile is level. The top edge of the tile is level. So that part's real important. Get your line around there and make sure that that's even all the way around, and that'll make things go better later. Now, my tub wasn't quite level down here. It was enough that it drained towards the drain here. I had enough slope on it for that, but by rights it should have been up about a ½ inch higher in order to have a good drain to it and to be what it was supposed to be. But the floor just wasn't quite level enough, and I didn't want to. It sat pretty flat and didn't rock or anything, so I thought, well, I'll live with it with the tile. It has a big edge on it, overlap on it, so the tile does overlap that by 1.5 inches, so I shouldn't have any trouble if I caulk the bottom of it. It looks a little better if it's down on that a little bit farther where it was made to, but this is actually made, I think, for the plastic surround part that goes around it. There's 3 pieces, I think, that go on, but I wanted to have a tile wall here, and so it works with that, and just doesn't fit quite as well in some places. You can see where there's some drains and stuff that were made for that other piece, but anyway, this works real well. It does have that edge that goes around there, but as you can see on one side I'm up a little bit more than what I should be. It should be, and I had to use quite a few more spacers there, so in order to get it to come out level. And that kind of gave him a predicament, because I had to try with the shower pan not level, and it made it a little bit harder trying to get it even. So much as you always want to try and get everything as level and straight as possible initially, and it saves you work in the long run. That's why I say get this, as level as possible all the way around that first row. It makes it a lot easier putting these other ones on. So if you get a little bit off, it's a lot easier to correct. But if you already start on with it not level, then it gets just worse. So anyway, these are lining up pretty good and seem to be working good. And I'm going to continue on. Here, I'm back on the shower here, and I was going to show you, I'm getting ready to install a ceramic shelf that goes up here in the corner. It'll sit on these 2 tiles, and you want to make sure you get a good skim coat on there, and all that is just putting a thin layer of the mortar to make sure it adheres good to the backer board that you have on there, that cement board. So I've already done that side. I'm going to do this side here, and all I do is get some mud on there. I'm going to make it thicker, but what I'm doing right now is just making sure, and I do this on all the walls, and on the floor too. This is what they talked about by putting this skim coat on. Notice that's not thick on there, because if I just put it on there thick, it may or may not be stuck to what's behind it, and it could come off and not actually be stuck to it. So I do this, just make sure I drag it across. Then I'll come back and I'll add some thickness to it. And then I'll go ahead and do my notch trowel stuff with it. And I'm going to put some on the back of this ceramic shelf here. Glad that didn't break. So now I just get some thickness there, so when I do my notch trowel, I'll be able to pull some out of it. Do some on that side too. Come back with the notch trowel. What you look for here, just make sure you got some good go. Now on the ceramic shelf, let me show you here. Okay, there's some holes on the one side of this. And I want to make sure I get some mortar, whichever wall this goes against. I only have it on the one side, the other side is just flat. But one side has a hole, and what that is so when you put, I'm going to butter back this with some mortar on the back. I want some of that to squeeze inside, so when it hardens, it's solid in clear to the wall, and it's got some in here, and it'll catch around the corner of that and keep that a little bit more solid in there. So I'm going to go ahead and put some mortar on the back of this on both sides, and I'm going to stick this up here onto the corner shelf. There, and all I did was push that up in there tight, make sure it was resting on both edges. Okay, here's the corner shelf all in place. I got 2 tiles around it, and getting ready now to do the rest of the tile. I'm going to have to cut out here for the shower handle and for the one up there where the shower head goes. And I got to put my white band around here and put that all the way around, and that'll go all the way around here with one white row, and then I'll go back to the brown for the rest of the way. So anyway, TinyT Prepper signing out. Y'all have a good day.